This is Mission Qualfon, a monthly podcast that takes you inside the workings of our company, but not just the ins and outs of business. We look at the ideas and insights that make Qualfon truly unique. As a company, we are committed to being the best and making each person's life better. Join us as we get to know and learn from people from across the organization. What's their story? What have they learned? And how do they live out Qualfon's mission? Welcome to Mission Qualfon.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to Mission Qualfon. Episode 42, Jeremy.
42 and episode 2 of season 3. Did I get that right? Yeah.
You got that right. Season 3. It feels like we just started, and as well as like, wow, this is a lot of content.
Yeah.
We put in a lot of thought about behind why we want someone on the podcast, and or not. I would reframe that. It's not so much who is on the podcast, but what we're trying to get out of them for that podcast. What story are we trying to tell that highlights both Qualfon and the mission? And so there's some thought.
Believe it or not. Right. Yes. Yeah.
And so what I was saying off mic to you was I was the one that asked for Robert Mason to be a guest this season because I'm pretty sure his anniversary is coming up, his 1-year anniversary. And I feel like when you just join an organization, at least in corporate America, you have like a year where everything is new, like you're experiencing everything for the first time, the people and the culture and the dynamics. And it's this time before you, I call it the vortex, before you get sucked into the vortex.
Right.
And you just become part of the cyborg that is business, that is corporate America, regardless of company. And so Robert is soon to be a year, I believe. And I wanted to get him on the podcast to, it's like what we were talking about. The name of the podcast is Mission Qualfon. It's a podcast not so much about a company, but really the mission behind the company, which is the mission of the chairman who consecrated this privately owned company to try to improve the quality of people's lives. It's like it's a really big thing, and it's such a differentiator from any kind of industry. I mean, I'm sure there are other businesses out there. I'm not trying to say we're the only ones, but it's what makes us special.
Yeah, and I see this more and more in my role, even though I'm not in marketing. I don't work for marketing, but what I find in my role working as part of the mission is that we can talk about things over and over and over. And most of my meetings are with people in the mission office and all of these things. And so we assume that because we talk about and share these things so often, that everyone in the company is fully aware of all the stuff we have going on. And that's just not the case, right? And to your point, we talk about the mission and how great it is, and it is great. And we assume that this is just something that is common knowledge and everyone is aware of all the things that we do. And so it is awesome to have someone who's new to the company, who hasn't been talking about the Qualfon mission for the last 6 years, right? We can get their view in the eyes of a new hire and hear how the mission has impacted them, what their initial thoughts were. So from that standpoint, it is so awesome to be able to hear from someone who is coming from the outside fairly recently. I think it's great.
Yeah, I wanted to also kind of like, I think I'm on my 4th or 5th year. I've worked for the company at 2 different points in my life, and so I'm in the vortex. Like I'm in it. We have 41 previous episodes about the mission. Like we're in it, deep in it. But I am jealous of that new hire set of eyes. And I do kind of question, like, do we sound crazy? Because at the end of the day, it is an organization. It is, a business. It is a profit. It is doing the absolute best services for our clients. It is winning those sales bids. It's a well-oiled run machine that we are a part of. And then on top of it, we've got this thing called the mission that we're like literally talking about all the time. So it's like I kind of just want to ask, hey, how do we sound to you?
Right.
Have we been able to convince you that we have great intentions? So, and I think this interview kind of sheds a little light on that. So
yeah, I agree. We're talking with Robert Mason, who is our managing director of marketing services on this episode.
With that, let's welcome Robert Mason.
Thank you, Marisol, Jeremy. It's a pleasure to be here.
I know that you started at Qualfon within the last year, so you're kind of a newbie. And I thought it would be great to have someone who has that new hire perspective, but you've been here enough also that you can kind of get a taste of what our company culture is like. So, but before we get into all that, could you tell us about, how'd you get to Qualfon and what your division does?
Sure. Actually, I reached out via LinkedIn to Mike Morrow, networking. I was in market to find another opportunity, and that led to networking in with Doug, and had a couple calls with Doug Carney. There were different positions that potentially could use my skill set. So we began talking, and it just evolved. So truly, it was researching companies that had marketing services lines as well as BPO, because that's really my background, marketing services, BPO, and data. And it seemed to be a great fit, and went through the process and was able to interview with all the senior folks at Qualfon and Dialogue Direct, and ended up starting to work March 1st of 2021.
I know Mike's LinkedIn is going to get hit up now. A lot of people. So could you, for any audience member who's listening who doesn't understand the term marketing services, could you kind of define that for us?
Sure. From a marketing services standpoint and integrated solutions, we kind of differentiate a little bit on that within the company. Marketing services you would use if you're a company that maybe is doing e-commerce. So we help companies by fulfilling product directly to their consumers, as well as to their distributors. We will work with pharmaceutical companies in clinical trials by producing information that needs to go potentially to the physicians that are involved in those clinical trials. We'll also work with pharma companies to put out patient information that goes to doctors' offices or potentially goes to pharmaceutical reps. We also will fulfill medical devices that maybe are used in the field. So we have what we call different verticals, and our service offering is relatively the same, but somewhat differentiated. And let me explain a little more. So in the pharmaceutical world we talked about, that's really fulfillment. We have two types of fulfillment. One would be marketing collateral fulfillment that we discussed for pharmaceutical companies. We also do that for large distribution companies that need materials in the hands of their sales reps. From an e-store perspective, we will also fulfill that material maybe in a business-to-business fashion. So if you're an automotive dealer, we can have an e-commerce store for you, and we do, that you order from to fill materials or product, whatever you need, into your dealer store. So we have that type of fulfillment, and we also do fulfillment of healthcare cards or information for insurance companies that they need to put in the hands of their members. So it's information that they require, which on our end, we do the data processing to that, we produce the variable output, and sometimes that can end up as a direct mail package. If you, in our automotive vertical, have a recall on your vehicle, we work with automotive manufacturers to produce that direct mail that will end up in your mailbox that says you need to go to your dealership to get your vehicle completed or fixed. So what we do is quite varied, but it really breaks down into direct mail for informational purposes, whether it's insurance, whether it's an offer for a retailer, or it could be a healthcare card.
A way I've described it to my children sometimes is when I go to the mailbox, I'm like, we do this. I throw out the flyers on the table. Be like, this is what we do in the back office.
Which is considered, back office, where we're working for companies who outsource that type of service. Similar to in the call center world, they're outsourcing their call center services, right? That's why even though we're marketing services, we still are business process outsourcing, because it's a business process that isn't being performed internally at our customers. So they're outsourcing it because we have economies of scale and can do it at a more competitive price than they could do internally themselves.
So I'm going to call an audible here, Marisol, because this wasn't something Marisol and I even talked about. But I want to ask this question because I think it's going to be a great question. So Robert, your ears may have been burning the last few weeks because in Qualfon University, where I work with Matt Carlton and Al Baranachia, we've talked a lot about Robert Mason's group. So much of our focus has been on the call center side, the contact center side. And now with Robert's organization, which is Marketing Services and Integrated Solutions, we've got a different group of agents and managers that we also want to make sure they have the opportunities to have the supervisor certification and all of that. So my question, Robert, is you have a background in both marketing services and BPO. What's the difference from like a leadership standpoint when you're working with a contact center versus folks in marketing services? What's the difference between the two?
Well, really, marketing services, when it comes down to it, we're a manufacturing operation, right? When you think about it, we're manufacturing direct mail pieces. We're manufacturing fulfillment packages. So the way we manage and look at our productivity on how we manage a business, the nice thing about call center, which I'm extremely jealous of Doug Wells, their information is to the minute. They have people on the phones. We have data systems that can tell them exactly what they've done in the last 30 minutes because everyone is so connected. In the marketing services world, we're very decentralized. We have locations in North Las Vegas that helps us with our West Coast distribution. Part of our strategic plan is to be able to continue and fulfill e-commerce nationwide and continue to grow our footprint. We have a location in Highland Park, Michigan. We have one in Robbinsville, New Jersey, as well as a company outside of St. Louis in Illinois. So we operate more as manufacturing, which when we talk about education, Jeremy, is really interesting because the Six Sigma Greenbelt course that I took was basically bent to fit call center, right? But Six Sigma was originally brought out for manufacturing. So Al and I have been talking about the education that we do for our supervisors on the floor, for our production staff. So it is a different mindset in terms of how we manage the business. It's very labor intensive, similar to the call center, labor being our largest cost. So that's a parallel between the businesses. But the way we measure productivity is different because each job we do in marketing services is different from one client to the other. It's a very broad range. We could be sending out displays to go across the country into retail stores next to someone who's packaging up earrings to be sent to someone who ordered them over Christmas, next to someone who's running a direct mail piece to put out a warranty recall. So it's extremely varied, and we need to manage our labor in a way that can flex up and down as projects come in and come out. So that's just a little bit different. I'm sure those folks from call center can see the difference that we have in marketing services running the business compared to running the call center.
I just want to say that I don't think there's many people out there that aren't jealous of Doug Wells.
DW is a great guy. I like Doug a lot. He actually has really helped me quite a bit get accustomed to Qualfon, and it's a large company, and knowing who to talk to about what sometimes can be slightly confusing, but he's really been a nice guide to me, and I do appreciate all he's done.
So tell us about, after you got to Qualfon, The question we always tend to ask on the podcast is about the mission. And what was your first honest reaction to this idea of the mission? Because I'm sure if you met with the executive team, you heard about it.
Oh, sure. And every company says they want to do those types of things. What really cemented it for me was the first advisory board meeting I was on. And the agenda was such that a great majority of the time was spent discussing and updating where we are with the mission. To me, that emphasizes the importance from Alfonso all the way down, because that was a major topic that was covered. And I began to think, wow, I think these folks are serious. And while I was on the meetings for our COVID task force and the dollars that we raised to help people through COVID and how we're helping our friends in the Philippines, it's a focus of this company, and there's dollars being put behind it. You can say talk is cheap, right? But when you're actually doing it, you're putting time and attention and resources in the form of salaries and response management in terms of helping our people through these challenging times. It's something that I really haven't seen in any other organization that I've worked in. Like I said, many people say they want to do this, and when you read the website, you kind of go, well, really? But it's accurate. It's very true. I just had a meeting this morning on what areas we need to improve upon, and that's given time and attention. Doug Carney pays attention to that and questions me about it. So it's certainly important to him. It's important to senior management, which trickles down to me and my senior team. An important part of our daily thought process, really.
I think one of the other things that make Qualfon unique is them embracing this idea of spirituality in the workplace. And I know my reaction when that first came about for me when I joined Qualfon. What was that for you? Was that, because I never experienced that in the BPO space prior to Qualfon.
What I thought was interesting, and I understand that can be somewhat of a complicated question, or people may not take it for what it's worth, but when I thought about it, and I had people say, oh, geez, I'm not sure that I buy into that. I thought, okay, well, let's take a look at this from 1,000-foot level. When you look at like the Strides program and things that all lead towards that sort of spirituality, where's the downside there? The tenets that are discussed and talked about, and in the spirit at which they're offered, I really don't see a downside. I see it as a positive to the organization, regardless of where you come in on a spirituality spectrum. I think it's a positive add, because I don't understand how people could look at that and feel that was a detractor to the company. Does that make sense, Marisol?
No, it completely makes sense. And I agree. And I feel that we do it it's a gentle notion that we have it within the company. It's not I don't know, Jeremy, help me out here. It's not like we're being beat over the head with any sort of dogma or
we're not being
anything
proselyted to, right? But it's a recognition that aspect is very important to most people. So for me, that was the thing I really appreciated about it was an acknowledgement that spirituality piece to many of us is very important. So it's, to your point, Marisol, not about a specific religion or doctrine or whatever, but it is an acknowledgement that is a value that's very important to a lot of people. And to Robert's point, I love the way you said that. There's no downside to that. And I completely agree with that. I mean, I just think that's a great acknowledgement.
Yes, and I was interested in that new, and I know you're almost going to be here a year, so I'm sorry if I keep referring to you as a new hire, but when you start a company, you have the fresh eyes and fresh experiences, and you're absorbing everything with just new eyes. So I just kind of want to capture what that, is like for the audience. But I think, Robert, you described that brilliantly, because it isn't a downside. It's basically like the golden rule. Just be nice.
Right. Be that employee that you want to work with. The one thing I take from Doug quite a bit is he's, every few weeks he'll find something on motivation or how to reflect back into yourself to become better. And that's something that you don't always see, because when you say you want to be better, essentially you're saying you're certainly not perfect, right? How do we continue to get better? And I hold that pretty true from my direct reports, because I want to be able to help them just as Doug offers to help me or Abel offers to help me. There's this feeling that we want to lift each other up versus tear each other down. And I've worked for companies where, someone in my position might be looking to tear down a peer just to make myself look better. But the feeling at Qualfon is one that's not tolerated. That's not the way we want to present ourselves as senior leadership to the team. So that's something I try to keep in the forefront of my mind. And I think that spirituality sort of maybe sets the tone for how we should be acting as senior managers or as human beings, basically, at the very basic.
Doug Gilmore, I think he's one of our Qualfon alumnus. He was on the podcast. I don't remember what season, and he made a similar point too. That I have a phrase for it, but I can't use it on the podcast. But the bigger and better are more important than you are, and I'm going to make you small to do that. That is not. I haven't experienced that at Qualfon, and that's it. You forget about it after you've been at Qualfon for a while, and then you speak to people outside of the company, and you're like, oh wow, I'm sorry that you're going through that with your peers, because again, it's really a nice culture that we have where we're really, I feel everyone is, for the most part, will do anything to help anyone do the best that they can do, down from Alfonso all the way to the floor. So, Jeremy, do you want to ask the next question?
I'm going to ask, and I know this about Robert. I don't know if you've noticed this. I've been keeping track of this, Robert. Robert has the lowest count of anyone we've interviewed. And no, seriously, I get to edit these. And so what I edit out is ums, and I'm already super excited because Robert has very few ums that I'm going to have to edit out. I'm the worst. I have the most ums. But my point is this, what that tells me is Robert is very organized, right? And you notice his answers have been very spot on, organized, succinct, very well thought out, which is impressive to me. And so I want to throw you a question that maybe is a little from left field, because you are a real organized guy. What is the most exciting thing about your job? I mean, when you think about work and there are things you're really looking forward to doing, what are the parts of your job that are, and I'll use the word fun, that are the most fun for you?
No, Jeremy.
Then you threw an Okay.
No, I'm teasing you there. It's interesting. We have a weekly kickoff call, right, with Doug, both Dougs, and Prashant, and basically all of Doug's direct reports. And we kind of go through our weekly to-do list. As you mentioned, I'd like to be organized. I have my to-do list, what I'm going to try to get done. And I've always thought success means you know which things have to get done, because you're just not going to get everything done in a day, but how you prioritize is important. And fun for me is seeing the team make improvements where I can report we have this project, we're working towards it, we've hit these goals, and going forward for the betterment really of the company. I get a report card every month. It's called the profit and loss statement. And when we are doing our jobs and we're clicking on all cylinders and we're making our numbers, that is fun for me and that is fun for the team, because in our business, it is a business. We want to win in that fashion. So anything I have on my to-do list that's going to get us closer to making those goals, is super important. There we go, Jeremy. Now I have just done it. It's too far into my head. Well, with Qualfon, compared to previous companies, I've been in a private equity situation where you're coming in to try to fix a company, to sell the company, and the decisions and how you operate are very different. I learned early on that Alfonso wants this company to be around and thrive for 300 years. So the pressure that I feel and that my team feels is we need to be making decisions that get us towards that goal, the long-term play, how we invest, how we deploy our resources currently, and how we do it each day. Either it's going to take us closer to that goal or further away. So I enjoy getting closer to that goal and making those decisions with my team to see how we progress. That really, to me, is fun. And when I visit the facilities down on the production floor, seeing the machines run and the forklifts drive around, products being shipped, that to me is also energizing. So I like to spend a lot of time visiting the facilities and the management teams that run them.
So Robert, we usually ask on the podcast, like, what advice would you give a new hire? But I want to switch it around for you and say, what would you want a potential client to know about us? Like, why Qualfon over a competitor?
The business model that Qualfon adopts is we want to keep our people happy. We want to educate our people, because if our folks are happy, they're educated, they have good tenure, we are in turn going to be able to outperform our competitors who don't spend that much time on their employees. Long tenure allows us to learn from our mistakes, not do them over again. No company is perfect. Every company is going to have foibles. It's how we recover. It's how we service our customers, because the way we treat our people, I think, is a reflection on how our people are going to treat our customers. So I think that is a real niche that Qualfon Dialogue Direct has over its competitors, at least from the previous companies that I've worked with. It is a differentiator and something that I think helps us win every day in the marketplace. I do have a quick thing to throw out there for you, Marisol. When you said, what do people ask you in terms of how am I going to be successful at the company? And I get this question a lot from the time I had my first 9-person fulfillment department, right? They say, Robert, how am I going to be successful? I said, it's very, very easy. And I've always practiced these 3 things. Come to work on time every day. Work while you're at work. And when we require overtime, please do your best to help us out. And people go, no, there must be much more to it than that. Much more to it. I say, no. It's really those 3 key areas. And it's difficult to really hit that out of the park every day. And I challenge myself to follow those 3 things. I have a routine. I'm at work within 2 minutes every day of when I'm supposed to start, according to me. I work while I'm here. I go the extra mile when it needs to. If we instill that into our folks, that is the quickest, easiest way to move up in an organization. And with the resources that Qualfon puts out from an education standpoint, with the LinkedIn Learning, the university, the trainings for the site directors, it's on a silver platter. We just have to take it and make the effort. And that's another thing I like about the company, how much it's trying to invest, again, in its folks to educate them, make them better. So in turn, we treat our customers better and win in the marketplace. It's just a circular loop.
Well, Robert, thank you for coming on. I know that being asked to come on a podcast is a weird request, but I truly do appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise with us this afternoon.
Well, thank you, Jeremy and Marisol. I appreciate you asking me on. Qualfon's a fun company, fun at work. Heck, we have fun at work committees.
Yes.
How many places can say that, right? But I do enjoy it. I enjoy working with my peers, and just grateful for the opportunity to be able to contribute to the team.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you, Robert. Well, I'm glad we had Robert on, Jeremy, because that's exactly what I wanted to kind of get was, hey, tell us about this experience for you. And he was great. It was so much fun and something else I love about doing the podcast? You know this because you're in the mission department, as you mentioned in the intro. I work for corporate, which is technically I'm in a department, but I'm in a silo. Like I don't have like you. So I get to meet people that I normally wouldn't have crossed paths with in my day to day, and I get to talk to them and know them, and have an experience with them, and it's just fun.
Right. And I just want to put out another plug. You plugged it at the beginning. Is our guests, to be honest, are folks that Marisol and I are aware of, through our own exposure to people throughout the company. But I'll just throw this out there. If you know of someone that would be a great guest within Qualfon or even without Qualfon, outside of Qualfon, let us know. You can email, Jeremy, me, or Marisol, and we would happily take those recommendations for guest ideas. And to that point, one of the things we want to do in season 3 is kind of expand, our audience is expanding. We're finding more and more of our folks that listen are not Qualfon employees, which is exciting, but we want to expand our guest base also. And this season, Marisol, hopefully I won't give too much away here, we have some exciting interviews coming up. For instance, we'll be talking with a senior government official from Guyana coming up. Looking forward to that. And there will be other interviews that are outside of Qualfon that will be really fun discussions to have, and I think will be really enlightening to hear. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm excited. I'm excited for the expansion and for the growth. So we want to have our chairman on one day. I feel like that's an inevitable podcast, but I'm sure it's going to be a special edition. It's going to be one of those 3-hour Joe Rick in-person special. Whenever it happens, it will be exactly when it's meant to happen.
Right.
But I'm excited. I'm excited for the expansion and to have guests not only within Qualfon, more, our peers as well as executive team, and it's great. But I am excited to go outside, and we're considered a business podcast. We cross over so many verticals, and we have an incredibly unique business model, and we have something incredibly special. So if we can broaden our audience by, also broadening our guests and learning stuff and sharing stuff, I think it's exciting.
I agree. I just want to thank everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, share, give us a rating. All of that helps. And we will see you next time on the Mission Qualfon podcast. Bye, Marisol.
Bye, Jeremy.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Mission Qualfon. Remember, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Mission Qualfon.